Waterfall, the CCW podcast.
Hello and welcome to Waterfall. It's the water saving podcast brought to you by CCW. I'm Mike and I'm here with Karen. You've already started pulling faces. Hi Karen, how are you?
I can see we're on a high octane episode this week.
Well, we're very excited to be here because we've got a really fab guest, because we've got Katie Smith coming on, who is from Defra, which is the UK government's environment department, and she is a head of water efficiency. Tom is here too, producer Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hi Karen, hi Mike, hi everyone. We're on the fancy microphones here, so me and Mike are particularly ebullient.
Yeah, it's Karen who's got microphone envy this week. This is Waterfall. It's a water saving podcast where we're all about saving water, saving money, protecting the environment and combating climate change. You can get in touch with the show. We have an email address.
We do indeed, and that's podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
Now, before we get into today's episode, we do want to talk about one of our favourite people who has been in touch using the email address.
Hey.
It's Tony V, who features on an episode about Tony's water saving odyssey. I can't recall what number that was off the top of my head.
Whoa, yeah, 40s, I think.
I think in the 40s too. So Tony wrote to us with a couple of suggestions. One was point us towards Mexico City and the water situation there, and maybe we should look into that in terms of doing an episode, which is a great suggestion. So if you've got any Mexican listeners who want to come on, please get in touch, because we would would love to have you on. But he was following up on the comment we made in one of the episodes about a snake being found in a toilet.
Right,
and I think it was Wolverhampton the snake was found. That's right,
I
yeah.
right.
So it was local to us. But Tony wrote back and said it reminded him of a situation he had way back in 1978 when he was living with his parents in Brooklyn, in New York, and a rat appeared in his toilet, and his cousin was screaming, which alerted the family to this rat appearing, and his dad, a World War II veteran, reacted like a real soldier. His instincts kicked in. He went in, and Tony's going into quite a lot of detail here, but let's just say his dad dealt with the rat.
Yes.
And the rat was no more. But not only that, a second rat appeared later on in the day. And that rat met the same ending at the hands of Tony's dad. So, I mean, I always thought this was a bit of a myth that you get
down the
rats.
drain pipe.
Yeah. Have you heard of that in the UK? I've not.
No, but there's an adage, isn't there, that you're only so many metres away from your local rat.
That's right. We're only like 2 meters or something away from a rat.
Yes.
Again, that always sounds like an urban legend.
A little bit.
An urban myth.
Yeah.
So there we go. That was Tony. I'm sure Tony has more and more anecdotes. Keep them coming, Tony, because I feel we've got a second episode.
Please.
It's
brewing.
Tony's water stories. Now that would be great. So I know Karen would love that episode.
Well, I think we're going to go from one water challenge to another now, aren't we?
Yes, we are, because we are straying into new territory, actually, because we've had lots of people who have got lots of experience in water, hands-on experience, and now we're actually straying into a different realm, because we actually got a guest on who is from Defra, and she is the head of water efficiency at Defra, and is going to be telling us all about what the government's up to. So I think, let's just stop our waffling and bring on the guest.
Enjoying the show? Please consider leaving a 5-star rating on iTunes and Spotify.
Well, it's brilliant to welcome Katie Smith to Waterfall. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So would you describe yourself as a water guru?
Yes, or I'm a water guru in progress.
A water guru in progress. That was very diplomatic of you, as to not annoy Karen. So you are a government water guru, because you work for Defra, which is the environment department, and you are head of watery stuff. Is that your correct job title?
Yeah, so I'm the head of water efficiency and demand management at Defra.
That's quite a mouthful. And just for people listening, put that into the most simplest layman's terms.
So my job is all about giving advice to ministers, going out and talking to everyone who wants to influence policy, everyone who's got a vested interest in water, to basically help us meet this water demand target that we've got. So it's a legally binding target to reduce the amount of water used per person by 20% by 2038. So yeah, an interesting job, Mike.
So we're going to get back to that target in a little bit. So obviously you're a friend of the show. So it's always great to have friends of the show on. So you'll have heard in other editions of Waterfall, we do talk about the fact that there is a big gap in what the water that's available and the need for water that's looming in the future. And if we don't do stuff about it, we will be in trouble. And that's obviously going to have a big problem for England and Wales, as it would batter the economy. If we had no water, our personal lives would be affected. Environment would really suffer. So there's all these reasons why it's a bad thing. And often we focus on what individuals can do and what water companies can do. But when you put it in terms of battering the environment, bad for the economy and affecting people's lives, you see when you add all those up, clearly there is a space for action at a governmental level. Would you agree with that summary, or have I kind of pitched that wrong?
Oh, yeah, I think the government's keen to do something in this space. We've outlined in our plan for water a number of actions that we're going to do. And we found that from the EA have found from revised water resource management plans that actually there's going to be almost a 5,000 million litre gap per day. And government interventions definitely play a key role in that as well.
We just dwell on that number for a second, because it's one of these numbers that, if you work in the water sector, we throw it around a lot, but you just stop and listen to what you've just said there. So it's 5,000 megalitres, so 5,000 million litres per day gap. I mean, it is mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think we've got a plan to close that gap within government. So we're looking at doing half of that gap through building new supply and then half of that gap through managing demand. But it's definitely a big challenge. And it's for a number of reasons. I mean, it's being driven by population growth, wanting to make sure we keep water in the environment. So for important habitats such as chalk streams, and also just seeing an increase in demand as well through climate change. So hotter weather, and also when we get to the winter, things like freeze-thaws, which cause increased leakage as well. So it's interesting that both hotter and colder weather can impact this as well.
So it's interesting, you came right back at me when I said, 5,000 million litres a day, and you said, well, we have a plan for that. How confident are you in the plan, and what part can government play in making that plan happen?
You know, we're confident in the plan because actually the water resource management plans outline with each company how they're going to get to those numbers for each of their local areas. And it will be different depending on localities. But there's also a range of actions that government itself is taking. So we've committed to rolling out a mandatory water efficiency label, for example, by next year, which is one of our biggest government policies that we're going to be doing. And I'm sure we'll be talking about that within this podcast as well.
And you also talked about the water industry delivering supply side schemes. What sort of things are we expecting to see in the coming years?
Yeah, so when I talk about supply, I have to admit it's not in my team, but actually it's things like reservoirs, desalination plants, those kind of things to actually build how can we capture water, as well as how can we reduce consumer and business demand.
I'm interested in the water efficiency label because it's one of these things that you go, why doesn't this exist already? Because it just seems almost so obvious, because we're so used to seeing our energy efficiency label. Why is it taking so long, Katie?
It's taking time. You know, there's a number of people that we need to speak to. It will go on water using products throughout the UK. So it takes time to speak to all of those different people, gather the different views, and make sure that we're making a policy that's reflective of everyone involved in the process. But we really have seen internationally that it works well. So Singapore has a label. Australia has a label. I think in the Water Conservancy's research, they found that like 4 out of 5 Australians were aware of their water efficiency label. So we have really seen an impact. But yeah, with any government policy, we consulted on it. and published our response in September of last year that details the kind of feedback we got from people. And we're just in the process of working through that now to make sure that we can make a policy that's reflective of that. So that's sort of what causes government policy to sometimes take time.
So is it fair to say expect a label quite soon?
So the label will be delivered in 2025.
Right, so next year, okay.
Yeah, very exciting stuff.
It's definitely needed. I mean, I keep going on about my dishwasher that only uses 9 litres of water. But you had to really hunt around when I was buying a dishwasher to find that sort of information. So I think a label would be really, really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. This is all about raising consumer awareness of actually how much water is being used by the products that we're buying, and also raising awareness of businesses as well. So non-household have a big role to play in this. So we're asking for a 9% reduction by 2038, and we're also aiming for a 15% reduction in non-household by 2050. So yeah, non-household users also have a huge part to play in this as well.
I'm loving the water industry code that we're using here. So for most normal people, right? Non-household businesses, right? Businesses, charities, hospitals, that kind of thing, yeah?
Yeah, anyone who doesn't fall within the scope of like the usual person on the street. So yeah, you could be talking about any like commercial building, any businesses. So you've got your hairdressers, your shops. You could talk about big industrial plants that use water for their processes. So actually the non-household sectors are really, really diverse. And yeah, please do stop me if I'm using any civil service speak or government speak here so I can explain it.
Seems to make absolute sense, doesn't it, to encourage businesses to consider reducing their water use, because, you know, quite clearly they can reduce their running costs, and you can see the real deliverable benefit to them from saving water and potentially saving energy as well. Are there any sort of specific things that businesses can do?
Yeah, so the one thing that businesses can definitely do is talk to their water company and their retailers about what offers they have. So I know that some water companies and retailers do specific visits to businesses actually to go out and retrofit the business property. So this is where a water company would go in and actually take some products out and replace them with water efficient products. So you might, for example, take your shower head and change it into a water efficient shower head. You might change your tap into a water efficient tap, for example. There's also some wider things you can do, such as rainwater harvesting, particularly in places like schools where there are gardens and things, where it actually saves you taking drinking water from a tap to water your plants. Instead, you've got a water butt, and you can water your plants from the rainwater instead.
I mean, that sounds really good. And as I say, I think, businesses, particularly smaller businesses, are obviously constantly on the lookout for money-saving opportunities, aren't they? So that really sounds like a win-win.
You know what? One of the biggest things that we're working on at the moment is actually trying to fix leaking toilets. So a leaking toilet has between 200 and 400 litres wastage a day. So actually businesses, smaller businesses in particular, can look and see if they have a leaking toilet. And Waterwise's website has some good examples of how you can test if your toilet's leaking. And then you can call up your retailer or your water company to come out and fix that for you.
You can see that. Can you imagine if you had a football club or a cinema, somewhere that has like quite a lot of public toilets, for example, in their building, that if some of those were leaking those kind of amounts, that equates to a lot of money. So there's a real incentive there to make sure you're not wasting water, as well as being good for the environment. What's your view on the kind of whole corporate responsibility aspect of it too? Because if you're a business, obviously water is rising up the agenda in general, but obviously showing that you're a business that cares about the environment is important too. Is there more, do you think, we can do to encourage that aspect of it?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot we can do as the water sector to encourage everyone to understand the value of water. And actually wandering out and about, I've seen some really good examples of water efficiency within non-household. So I've been at my local garden centre and seen that they've got rainwater harvesting, for example. And I was in Copenhagen the other day. And as soon as I landed, I was on holiday, and as soon as I landed, I was just hit by information about their water usage, which has reduced by 30%, I think, in the last 25 years. And actually, a few of their commercial buildings had plastered on them that they were using rainwater harvesting in their toilets. So yeah, I think there's definitely a role for non-household and businesses to get involved in water saving. And we're doing a lot of work with Ofwat at the moment, actually, on how they can use the funds they've got available to work with non-households.
You should get yourself up to Birmingham, and you and I can go in a little trawl of the coffee shops of Birmingham that gets me enraged when you see the amount of wastage that's being done in certain chains of coffee shops that seem to have a policy of having constant taps running. We could single-handedly hit that non-household, that business customer demand target just by doing that. So are you up for that?
That definitely sounds fun. I'll come meet you for a coffee, Mike. I mean, I was in a pub the other day and I noticed on the toilet that it had press both buttons above the dual flush. So if people don't know what a dual flush is on your toilet, you could potentially have two different types of flush, and one is for using less water and the other one is for using a bit more water, depending on what you've gone to the bathroom for. So having something that says press both can be quite tricky, because that obviously wastes more water than is necessarily needed.
Is that something the government could work on, putting regulations in for manufacturers to make that dual flush button clearer? Because it has been, how many episodes of Waterfall now? 68, 69, and a recurring theme on sort of 68 odd episodes has been making that dual flush button clearer. It does feel like that's something we could put an end to.
Yeah, we're working on that now, actually. So we're currently drafting guidance for dual flush buttons to support manufacturers who are making toilets, and we're working with the manufacturing sector to do that. Excellent.
And will we expect to see some public consultations on that sort of thing?
You'll see it. So at the moment we're working on guidance. We don't have any clear timelines for when that'll be out to the public, but you will see it coming out to you.
I've got a few things to say about this. Can I help draft this guide?
Definitely feed into me, Mike. Definitely.
And I know I'm going to sound like a total and utter geek here, but the embarrassing photos on my phone are of lots of toilets buttons, because I take pictures of the ones that are terrible and really confusing. And you'd be amazed though how confusing it is. Some of them are not intuitive in the slightest.
I would definitely like to see some of those, Mike. That would be very useful for our research.
Very happy to help there. Now, there's something that I think we want to just get onto, because there's a few myths I think would be helpful to bust, which is about the targets. Because you mentioned right at the start that there were the targets for households and for business customers. Can we just talk a little bit about them? Like, how did they come about, and what do they mean in practice?
Yeah, so the water demand target is a legally binding target the government has to meet, and that's for 20% reduction per person by 2038. And underpinning that, so setting out how we'll achieve that, is cutting leakage by half by 2050. Reducing the usage per person to at least 110, and then also reducing non-household to 15% by 2050. And how those come about? So they come about in a range of ways, really. So the per person usage came about through the Environment Agency's National Framework Group that recommended that. They also looked across water companies' plannings and actually what they were planning to do and what looked feasible. The leakage target was one that the water companies had already committed to as an industry. So we were just kind of setting that in stone. So a range of things, but the Environment Agency and Defra looked across a range of data to basically build those targets, and they're set on the water companies. And then the way they're embedded, so they do water resource management plans every 5 years. That has to set out how they will make sure that actually there's enough water in the system for the amount of people that need it. And then also has to set that out for 25 years, and then needs to show every year, they'll need to show that they're basically achieving that. And the EA will review that as well. And then there's another kind of set of things where Ofwat sets companies' performance commitments, and our water demand targets are also kind of embedded into how Ofwat sets those.
What would you like Waterfall to cover next? Send your water-saving topics to podcast@ccwater.org.uk.
So basically what you described there, apart from you've got that complete full house of regulators that you name checked there, we want to keep our listeners, right? But what you described are science-based targets. So these targets have come up that are consistent with what we need to do to make sure we don't run out of water. Which so they're not just plucked from nowhere.
No, they're very scientifically based, and particularly with the water companies' plans, we'll consider like climate change projections and things like that as well. So yeah, very scientifically based. Got all the experts into a room to kind of come up with those targets.
And that, I think that's really good to hear and really important to hear, because I think sometimes people misunderstand targets. And the other quick one on targets is that I've seen it misinterpreted by certain newspapers in particular as this is a cap on individuals' personal water use. And we've been very clear on Waterfall that actually this isn't about impinging on an individual's civil liberties. This is an overall target that is a target at a government level. It's not a water police going around your house type target saying you've used over this amount. Again, is that a fair description of what those targets actually mean?
Yeah, that's completely right. So this is a national target. And then when we work with it on a more local level, it's working with our water companies and other local people who have an interest in water as well. But yeah, this is completely a national target. And there is a per person idea as to what would lead us to meet that target. But actually, it's not set on the individual themselves.
That's really good to hear, because I think Tom's getting quite worried about this, because every time we ask him about his water use on Waterfall, he's evasive, he's very slippy, he pretends he hasn't got his bill yet or his meter isn't working. I mean, he's full of excuses. So Tom, are you blowing this target? It doesn't matter.
No, Katie, thank you so much. I can rest easy now. That's great to hear.
You can have a good night's sleep.
And leave the tap on.
Right.
Please don't do that.
No, I would never do that.
Yeah, okay. No, that's super helpful about the target, because I just think it's really important that people are not misinterpreting it, because I think it can get people very hot under the collar.
Yeah, hearing a target, I suppose it can feel like a lot to hear 20%, but actually on a national scale, as I say, there's lots of things government's doing. There's lots of ways that we're trying to work with different industries. So my team has been talking across the government departments to try and work with different industries, like the hotel industry, for example, to figure out what we can do there. But the manufacturers, like I said, so yeah, it's very much, I think the individual can do a lot in this space. And there's lots of advice out there that people can get in terms of what they can do to save water. But it is also a national target.
Personally, I think those targets can be met without people actually even noticing a difference, like a big difference. Because actually it's about small tweaks to habits, updating your kit, your household goods, your white goods in the right way. And actually this target and getting water butts and mulching and all that stuff Karen's always on about. Just some small changes, actually we can hit that target. I'm very optimistic, but it does need concerted effort.
I was just interested to know, sort of from the company plans that you've seen, what sort of things are being proposed to help people use less water?
Yeah, so there's lots of different behaviour campaigns to actually firstly raise the awareness of water. So there's school visits. There's also smart metering, which I think we'll probably come on to later. But all the companies are looking to expand their smart metering, and actually how that will help the consumer. So a smart meter records your water usage more regularly than a standard meter or not having a meter at all. And actually that gives the consumer a much better understanding of how much water they're using. So that's also come through in water company planning. But everyone can find their own local water company's plan online as well. I'm sure most of your listeners are super interested in water and have already looked this up, but you can find your company's plan online, which has all the details of what they're looking to do in your local area.
If you want to get to sleep, then I'd recommend you have a look.
They're quite large documents. Maybe have a look at the summary.
How optimistic are you, Katie, on the targets and then in meeting them?
You know what? I'm optimistic. Yeah, I can see things going in a good direction. We've got lots planned for the next year on the government side. I'm always speaking to people who are really interested in water. There's lots of businesses looking at this, lots of people And most people I speak to have an opinion about water as well. I think it's an area of great interest for people, and it's one that everyone knows something about. And having worked in government for a while, there are lots of topics that people don't know as much about, but actually water is one of those ones where everyone has an opinion and a view. A lot of people have water butts in their garden, for example. So I'm optimistic about the target.
I heard a lot about smart metering in the news over the last few months, and some people don't particularly like them. There's a bit of suspicion about them. Where does the government stand on smart metering?
Yeah, so government's view on smart metering, we've asked companies to actually speed up their smart metering, and companies are doing that. There's a number of benefits from smart metering that go beyond also giving the consumer information on a more regular basis. So one of those is that actually it allows you, by having more information at more regular intervals, you can see when someone's got a leak. And that can save the consumer money, and also just means that you're wasting less water, which is great. And then the other thing is so that we in government and water companies can understand where people use the most water. So actually, is it that people have an increased water use in certain months of the year or at certain times of the day? And then we can actually understand how the consumer likes to use water and how we can support them to reduce water usage. If consumers are concerned about smart metering in any way, there is obviously your brilliant calculator that calculates how much you can save. There's water companies do have various like tariffs for people who maybe are struggling to pay their water bill. Some water companies have a tariff where you can choose to switch to a meter, but the water company will stick to the cheapest bill. But actually, your calculator shows that many people will save money from smart metering as well. But yeah, government is very keen for water companies to increase their smart metering, gives good data and helps people understand their water usage.
So you got some great plugs into in there for some of the stuff that we've got on our website, some of the tools. So we do have this water meter calculator. So if you think a water meter might be good for you, check it out. We'll put a link in the show notes. And there's and also, just to add to what you were saying, Katie, most of the companies allow a person to switch back within 2 years. If they switch to a meter and they find they're paying more, they can switch back to an unmetered tariff. So again, it's kind of low risk from a customer point of view. I think that's important to get out, because if people are going to take that leap into switching to a meter, knowing that actually there is that safety net there that they can switch back, it is really important. I mean, they won't physically retake the meter out, so you still get the wider benefits of metering in terms of better understanding of consumption in the round. So yeah, we can stick that in the show notes.
And there are a few areas where companies are systematically switching all their customers over to smarter meters, particularly in the drier parts of the south and east. So in those situations, the customer doesn't have the ability to switch back. And clearly, as we've already said, the general public, the people out there, are going to be playing a really key role in helping to achieve those targets. I wondered, do you have any particular water saving tips that you could share with our listeners?
There's actually, so I think the first one is like turning the tap off when you brush your teeth, which I know is a classic one. And I think I learned that in school, but I think that's a major one. I think the running tap can be about 10 litres per minute. So actually turning the tap off when you're brushing your teeth is a really great one. But one actually I've been thinking about recently. So I am an amateur gardener.
Oh, not another one.
Yeah,
welcome.
And I don't necessarily have, I don't have a garden. I have a windowsill, and as a result of that, I'm trying to grow some herbs on my windowsill. So if anyone's interested, I've got 5 breeds of chili, basil, rocket, that kind of thing. And I was actually thinking about how I could water my plants without using drinking water. So because I don't have any way of kind of harvesting rainwater from my flat, I'm looking at using my shower water. So I'm just going to pop my watering can into my shower. Particularly, the moment when you turn the shower on and you're waiting for the water to heat up, particularly trying to capture that. But yeah, that's what I'm going to do as my water saving tip. But I also did do a water use calculator, which I'm sure we'll come on to, and that gave me a few tips. So I'm going to invest in a shower timer as well, possibly with a radio, so I can maybe like play one song and know that's my shower up. And then also look at switching to a water efficient shower head. I just need to find out what kind of shower I have, but that's my next steps. So I definitely recommend that for anyone else. But yeah, have a look at your water company and see if they do free products, because actually a lot of water companies offer these products for free, and will give advice. But as well as that, Waterwise is a great source of information, and of course CCW. And then I guess my final bit of advice is to look at getting a smart meter as well, so you've got access to that information on a more like regular basis, and you can see what you're using.
Wow, you are a walking encyclopedia, Katie, of like water efficient advice. It's awesome. Look, it sounds like to me that you and Karen have been colluding in terms of some of your gardening tips, which I'm not sure I approve of. But I was thinking about, you mentioned shower radios, and obviously we've mentioned this before, and I know Waterwise have playlists, and we have playlists of like short shower songs. But one of the things I heard talking to a bunch of students at Wessex Water, which is one of the previous episodes of Waterfall, was that they were saying to me that actually if they have music in the shower, they just go, oh, I've got my song and I'm just going to put it on repeat. So instead of having a shorter shower, they end up having a longer shower. So I was thinking this morning while I was having my shower, actually what you need is a rubbish shower song, like the worst song. You play that and then you just need to get out, to get away from it. So if you had your worst shower song, what would it be? Same question for you, Karen and Tom, so you're not getting away with this.
That's a difficult question.
I was thinking the Cheeky Girls. I found the Cheeky Girls, if you remember those.
Yeah, that's a good one. Are there any songs that have been on repeat recently that have been quite annoying?
Yes.
I do. That Baby Shark song.
Yes, that was on my list
that's
too,
quite
actually.
a frustrating one. I think it's too repetitive. But I don't have it on my Spotify playlist. But maybe that would get me out the shower. And it's water related.
Yes, very good. Karen, over to you.
It would need to be probably something from a past Eurovision Song Contest or something.
Maybe like the Crazy Frog song, Karen. Like that.
Tom, where are you on this?
I don't want to say the Pet Shop Boys. I have an irrational dislike of Taylor Swift. So her new album came out the day of us recording this. So something off that, maybe. I don't know.
Do you know what, Tom? I've been listening to that all day, so I'm not with you there, but I'll see.
Oh, my bad.
Oh.
The Tortured Poets Department, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Stop it. I've already had one of my kids play me this morning at 7:30. So, I'm sure there's plenty of rival Taylor Swift podcasts. So, we have talked about this, Tom, in the past, haven't we? About morphing into a music review podcast, which I think is probably a little bit off topic, but, who knows? So, Katie, it's been really, really great speaking to you, but you're not off the hook. Despite your blatant sucking up to Karen about your little window garden, we have a very important question that we need to pin you down on, don't we, Karen?
We do indeed. We ask all our guests, Katie, what their personal water use is. So I'm hoping that you are aware of how much you use at home.
Yeah, I am. I am looking to reduce it, but at the moment I'm using. So I actually went through the calculator with my housemate last night to decide how much we thought we might use, and I did Thames's calculator because I'm in Thames's area. I use 131 litres per person per day in my household. So yeah, looking at ways to reduce that.
Well, I think some of those suggestions that you made earlier will be ones that hopefully will start to have some real impact.
I think so. Maybe I have to report back on how much I've been able to reduce.
Yeah, well, that would be good. It'd be good to have you back on. And it would be interesting to, especially to find out how things like the labelling has gone down and whether it's driven the changes that we hope. So, this is certainly, there's aspects here that are well worth following up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Would be good to come on and talk about the label once it's out.
No, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Right, Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I think it's been really informative, and it's good to hear that, it's not just down to people doing stuff by themselves or the water company doing stuff, but actually government plays a really important role as well in that collective action to make sure we don't run out of water. And then we make water that we do have, we use that as wisely as possible. So thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thanks so much for having me.